Briefing in for Dana Perino, and join me online, Outnumbered Overtime, across all platforms. Have a great, blessed weekend.
And we begin with a Fox News alert, and good afternoon to you. 4 hours and counting. That is how long exactly James Comey has been behind doors. Closed doors in this meeting on Capitol Hill, getting grilled by lawmakers. Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Banderas, and for Dana Perino today, and this is the Daily Briefing. So the fired FBI director sitting down with the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees after initially refusing to do so, saying he'd prefer a public hearing. Well, he didn't get it exactly. Lawmakers focusing on his handling of the Clinton email investigation leading up to the 2016 presidential election. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live in Washington. Boy, to be a fly on the wall. Hey, Catherine.
That's right, Julie. For Republicans on these committees, they say it really comes down to two issues. It's about power and accountability for the FBI during the 2016 presidential election. Because remember, we had this extraordinary situation where the FBI was doing a criminal investigation of Hillary Clinton and her email server and the handling of classified information. And when they closed that for the first time, they then opened a counterintelligence investigation on the opposing campaign with Donald Trump. Democrats say this is really about the Republicans trying to tarnish the special counsel investigation and kind of dirty up Mueller and some of the key witnesses in that investigation. But what we know several hours in is that Director Comey is not answering a lot of the questions, and the Republicans say it's at the direction of a government lawyer. Democrats say that it's fair game. Let's listen.
Director Comey is in there with two attorneys. The one that's from the Department of Justice has repeatedly, I would say at his gleeful acceptance, instructed that he will not be answering a great many questions that are clearly items at the core of our investigation.
I see it a different way. I was there. I heard every question. I heard every answer. And I certainly know that, people were at the table. I was left with the impression that they were instructing him for the right reasons to either answer or not answer.
As part of this deal that was brokered between Director Comey, his lawyers, and the House Republicans, is that there will be a transcript released to the public probably within a 24-hour period. So we'll be able to see for ourselves what the questions were that the government lawyer told the former director not to answer, and then we can decide for ourselves whether that seems justified with the ongoing investigations.
All right, so is this it today, or are they going to bring him back for more questions?
Well, that's you're right on top of the next most important issue. The Republicans are saying that because there's a hard stop today, just about 2.5 hours from now, that they want Director Comey to come back for another transcribed interview under oath. But they're also saying that they're going to push very hard now to get the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, to also sit for a similar interview before the end of the session. One Republican said it's because there is evidence that conflicts with his public explanation of this secretly recording the president, invoking the 25th. Rosenstein had said that he made those comments in jest.
Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein's public statements that he did not really talk seriously about taping the president and invoking the 25th Amendment is not consistent with a number of other sworn testimony or transcribed interviews that we've had.
What we're looking at here then is perhaps a second section with the former FBI director and maybe even a session with the Deputy Attorney General before Republicans lose control of these committees and the Democrats take the gavel. Just as a footnote here, the incoming Democratic chairman for the House Judiciary Committee told reporters this morning that he is going to shut down this investigation as one of the first steps he takes when he gains the gavel in January. Julie.
Wow, all the more pressure for this thing to wrap up soon. All right, Catherine Herridge, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So President Trump revealing 2 new members to his team today, announcing plans to nominate William Barr for Attorney General and Heather Nauert for UN Ambassador. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live on the North Lawn trying to keep up with all the happenings there behind you. What's going on, John?
And I just got off the phone just a second ago, Julie, and we've got another change that is going to be announced tomorrow at the Army-Navy football game that he's attending. President Trump will announce that he is going to put in the line of succession to replace Joe Dunford as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff over at the Pentagon, the current Army Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley. The president is very enamored of Milley. He is the sort of the textbook Hollywood version, if you will, of Joint Chiefs of Staff, and so the president will be making that announcement tomorrow. We do not know if Joe Dunford will work out for the rest of his term, which would run until October 1st of next year, or if he might be leaving early. We're trying to run that trap down, but we do know that the president tomorrow will announce General Mark Milley, the current Army Chief of Staff, to succeed the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joe Dunford. Now on to the news that by now is really old because it happened all of about 4 hours ago. The president doesn't know a whole lot about William Barr, who he has nominated to be his next attorney general. And there are some people who advised the president from outside the White House who were cautioning him against it. But just a few minutes ago in Kansas City, speaking to law enforcement officers, the president had high praise for his nominee. Listen here.
Bill previously led the Justice Department with distinction as Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, following his unanimous confirmation by the United States Senate. During his tenure, he demonstrated an unwavering adherence to the rule of law. No one more capable or more qualified for this role. He deserves overwhelming bipartisan support.
While Barr served as Bush 41's Attorney General, which puts him firmly in the establishment column, he does share some common ground with the president. He believes there was more cause to investigate Hillary Clinton's role in the Uranium One deal than there was cause to investigate the Trump campaign's possible collusion with Russia. And he fully backed the president's decision to fire James Comey in a Washington Post op-ed in May of 2017, saying, quote, "I know of no former senior Justice Department official, Democrat or Republican, who does not view Comey's conduct in July to have been a grave usurpation of authority." Barr also got a big vote of support today from the interim Attorney General, Matt Whitaker. Listen here.
The President's selection of Bill Barr as the next Attorney General is a continuation of this law and order presidency. Bill is supremely qualified, highly respected at the Department of Justice, and will continue to support the men and women in blue.
Even though Barr attracted broad bipartisan support for his first confirmation back in 1991, Democrats are already signaling that it is going to be a tough time for him. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, or assumed to be the Speaker of the House next year, saying, quote, "Barr has spent the past 2 years auditioning for this job by stoking partisan attacks on our nation's law enforcement community. This nomination is the latest in the president's pattern of installing partisan hacks in the highest reaches of our government who will happily do his bidding." Senator Schumer saying that Barr's got a steep hill to climb, that he must make a commitment to continuing the Mueller investigation if he hopes to make it through Senate confirmation. Meantime, the knives are already out for the president's nominee to replace Nikki Haley at the United Nations. The former State Department spokeswoman and former Fox News correspondent Heather Nauert, the Center for American Progress, saying, quote, "This nomination reinforces the Trump administration's complete lack of interest in diplomacy. To nominate someone with zero diplomatic negotiating experience is yet another reminder that the Trump administration, which has placed generals in charge of foreign policy and methodically gutted the State Department, does not prioritize diplomacy. Trump is not putting America first. He's ensuring America is alone in the world." Contrast that, though, with what South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham said. "I've known Heather for many years. She is a fine and capable person. She was an effective spokeswoman for the Department of State and enjoys the confidence of Secretary Pompeo and President Trump. I'm sure she will perform well at her hearing and look forward to supporting her nomination." Anyone that the president sends up to Capitol Hill for confirmation will face a rough ride, but these two may be particularly rough because Democrats really want to make a point, particularly if these confirmations don't start until the new year, when the House is firmly in Democratic hands, even though they don't have anything to do with Senate confirmation, but just kind of an overall sense of asserting their authority. Julie.
I was going to say, man, all right, you got to go sit down after that one. All right, John Roberts, thank you very much. Great reporting as always. So for more on all of this, Chris Stirewalt is Fox News politics editor and the editor of Halftime Report. All right, Chris, you got all of that?
I think so. I was keeping notes.
All right. So now 3 changes in the administration. John Roberts just making news here on Fox that we've learned of. Most recently, the new Joint Chiefs of Staff will be General Mark Milley. That is new news. We knew there were rumors of it. He had hinted at it at the football game earlier today. But I first want to get to the president's pick for Attorney General. Speaking about William Barr, President Trump says, quote, he was my first choice from day one, calling him a highly respected lawyer and one of the most respected jurists in the country. What do you make of the president's nomination?
Well, he's not a jurist, so that would be a problem. But Barr should be a very safe and very easily confirmable choice. He was widely respected for his time in the Justice Department, leading the Justice Department, and then, of course, he went on to become a mega corporate titan. He helped put together the deal that made Verizon. He became a very, very effective mergers and acquisitions kind of lawyer, dealing with antitrust stuff in the telecommunications world. He has a lot of rich friends. He has a lot of admirers, and he has a lot of credibility from his time dealing with issues like the LA riots and other things that were part of the Bush term. So he should be in good shape.
Yeah, he previously obviously served as Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, and ironically, we bid our goodbyes to him this week. His background could help the Trump administration bigly, as some would say, as it moves into the next. That is your word, right?
That's correct,
yeah,
yes.
Okay, see, I remember those things because I love your names. But as it moves into the next 2 highly political years, I mean, the next 2 years are going to be highly political, especially come January when the Democrats are going to be taking control of the House. So how